Alright, I'm still working with the JavaScript step-by-step library book, and I created a web page that basically is me typing chapter 13. Now, a better way to do notes is to just take a minimal amount out of the chapter, but I pretty much typed everything from the chapter from front to back or from top to bottom, and I stuck it in this HTML web page, and I used a JavaScript function to scroll the notes that I typed. And I typed these notes in a text area element, and I made this text area element, the div that it's in, exceptionally long, very high pixels of height, so that the scroll would continue to take it all the way to the end. And I used an audio tag with some JavaScript and some buttons so that you can hit stop, pause, um, play, pause, or stop. So anyway, let me open this up and go over the code. Right here, I'll remind you that chapter13.html is my web page. I don't have any external style sheets or JavaScript sheets. I have everything in the one page. I have styles and JavaScript in that page. And I have a couple of MP3 files that I created, but this one I'm only using chapter13.mp3. Basically, I read the book, the chapter, I read the notes, and used Audacity to create the MP3 audio file. Alright, so this is the chapter13.html. And it's not a pretty page, it's actually on the ugly side, but I'm just showing you the functionality of it. I'm going to open it up. Whenever it feels like it. Here's Firefox. Okay, so rather plain. We've got a fixed bar up here, a fixed element. It's got a gray background and there's 3 buttons inside of it. And it's fixed, so when you scroll, it doesn't go anywhere. It stays right here. The only thing that scrolls is all these notes that I took from chapter 13. And let's just start getting into the code. There's the opening HTML, there's the head, there's the title. It just says chapter 13 up here in the browser. All of this in green comment is basically, I'm not using it right now, but it's the possibility to create 3 different external style sheets so that I can change the look of the page, change the styles based on the width. And if you wanted to do that, this is how you could create 3 external style sheets, and based on how much you stretch or contract your page, it'll reach out and pick one of those style sheets. So this would be link rel equals style sheet, media equals screen, and min width 1 pix and max width 700 pix, href equals small .css. And if you wanted a medium size, you'd have this link rel equals style sheet, media equals screen, and min width 701 pix and max width 1000 pix, href equals medium.css. And lastly, link rel equals style sheet, media equals screen, and mid width equals 1001 pix and max width 5000 pix, href equals large.css. And you could change those numbers to whatever you want, whatever suits your mood. And of course, all these 3 external style sheets, they're going to be styled in whatever suits your mood. But I've got it commented out because I do want to play with that in a future time, but just not today. So this style that I do have on this page is going to be the style regardless if it's this narrow or if it's that wide. It's just got the one style. Okay, so let me go over some more of the code. The body, this is in the style, this is styling. The body has text align of center, margin of 0 pixels, auto, and padding of 0 pixels. Then I have a style for any button element. Border of 10 pixels, black outset. That's this border around each of these buttons. Outset gives it this lighter color at the top and a darker color at the bottom to give it this 3D illusion. Margin right, 2 pixels, so that there's an ever small amount on the right hand side of each of these buttons so that they're not directly touching each other. They move over just a couple pixels on the right of it. Font size is 30 pixels, so we have a nice, easy to read text on the face of the button. Okay. Each of these buttons have its own ID, so we use pound to indicate ID. And when we get into the body of this page, we'll see the button ID start, button ID pause, and button ID stop. So for the start button, we gave it a background color of green. The pause button, we gave it a background color of yellow, and the stop button, we gave it a background color of red. Pretty easy. Then I've got an element with an ID of wrap, which is basically wrapping everything here. And I gave that a border of thick black solid width of 1000%. Oh my god, 100%. Man, I'm tired. Float of center, minimum width of 450 pixels, and a background color of black. And the only thing you can really see is the background color of black because this fixed div goes across 100%, and this content area right here only has 70% of the width, so it's covering up anything else. And the fact that I gave it a thick black solid border, you can't see that either. If I turn that border to red for the element with the ID of wrap and refresh the page, well, you may not even see that either. Border thick, oh, thick black red. Wow, I know I'm sleepy. That's ridiculous. Thick red solid. Wow, I need to take me a nap. There it is. You see it way to the left, and if I scroll over here, you see it way to the right. I suppose if I were to take that width and minimize it just a little bit, 99%, let's see what happens. If I kind of like to get rid of this bottom scroll bar, so maybe I should go even, make it 98%. Let's see if we get rid of the scroll bar. Yeah, I really don't like that scroll bar down there because I don't have any intention of needing to scroll to the left or right. Okay, so if I open it all the way, do I still see the red and no scroll bar? Alright, I guess I'm going to go with that. I'm not too excited about seeing the red though, so I'm going to go back to that wrap and change that border to black. So I don't want to see it. If you want to see it, then you make it whatever color so that it shows. If you don't want to see it, make it black so that it doesn't. Whatever trips your trigger. Okay, so we went over the wrap. Now let's go over the ID of fixed bar, which is basically the style for this gray area that doesn't move. Border 10 pixels gray solid. If I were to change that to lime, that border would stand out more. And I'll show you that real quick. Or not. Border 10 pixels lime solid. Why is that not changing color? Oh, wow. Look at that. I gave it two borders. Oh, if that ain't tired, I don't know what is. What happens was if you give it two different styles in the same curly braces, whatever one is closest to the end is going to supersede this. So I gave it this lime solid, but then I had the other border that I just erased out of here, and so that's what it was. That was the final product. Let's do it now. There. Ooh, that's really ugly. Okay, border. Let's go back to what made more sense. Thick lime ridge. And that even goes, you don't even see the right hand side. When I open up all the way, I think you do. Yeah. But when it's smaller like this, the right hand side of the border kind of gets cut off. So that's ugly. So I'm going to go back to gray, but I just wanted to show you thick gray ridge. There we go. It looks a little better. Position fixed means that when you scroll, it's not going anywhere. It's staying right there. Uh, when you use a position of fixed, you might want to tack it to the top. So top is 0 pixels, left is 0 pixels, right I think I set to 5 pixels. For what reason I'm not clear right now, because it's stretching across 98.5%, so I don't think that makes a difference. I could probably erase that. Background color gray, padding 5 pixels so that there's a little bit of space before the buttons hit the border, and width 98.5%. Some browsers recognize a decimal with percent and some don't, and some elements recognize this depending on how they're positioned and such, and sometimes they don't. I just noticed that it happened to recognize the 0.5 working with this lately, so I kept that. All right, then info is going to stylize where I put my notes. And so we have a border thick green ridge, which you see the thick green ridge around it. Margin top 73 pixels, because since this gray element is fixed, if I didn't put this with a margin top of 73 pixels, I'll show you by misspelling margin top, it will just float right beneath. It goes right beneath this gray fixed. And I just didn't want that to do that, which I guess it didn't make a huge difference because when this goes all the way up, it's not that big of a deal. But if you don't want this element to actually end up sliding behind the fixed element, then you give it a margin top so that you push it down. So let me go back to there and refresh. See, now you see the whole top of that element. Okay, padding 30 pixels, so we have a nice space between the border of this element and the text. Height is very long, 36,500 pixels. If I were to take these two zeros off and just say height 365 pixels and then save this, you see what happens. Actually, I'm curious about something. I'm going to hit start and I'm going to see how much this actually looks like. It's not scrolling at all. It's not scrolling at all. Okay, so that was horrible. Let me put that length back and hit start and it scrolls. Okay, so obviously if this part of the page isn't hugely long, like way longer than the window size, the auto scroll functionality has no reason to scroll and it won't scroll. So you have to test with your height until you get it to have the ability to scroll all the way to however long your little note section is that you're using in this text area. And so that's going to be you testing numbers and testing how far it goes. If you don't have it long enough, it will scroll and then stop, and you may not be at the end of your notes. So then you just have to add some, like another 1,000 or another 10,000 pixels, and then just keep testing it until you find your perfect height. The width is 70%, so this section where the notes, it's 70%. You see the black on either side. If you open this up wider, it's 70% of this width. And for some reason this sticks. That's very strange. It should automatically flow. So you hit refresh and then it flows. So I don't really know what to say about that. It shouldn't stick like that. When you open it, it should just be nice and fluid. But whatever. All right. Um, I had this set for float center, but I don't believe I really need to since I have the body set at text align center. So I Z'd that out. But since I'm not testing this in more than one browser, I'm just going to Z it out instead of erase it. Because if this doesn't sit the way I want it to in a different browser, then I'm going to take the Z off so that float center is part of the style for this, which I shouldn't need it, but for some reason I don't know why I had it there in the first place. Font size 30 pixels so that our font we're looking at is nice and big, easy to read. And if you want to change your font family, you can. I Z'd this out, font family cursive, and if you Google font family, you'll find tons of different types of fonts that you can use. That's what it looks like if you set it to font family cursive, so that your notes can be as large. It can be, if you want it to be a color, I think that would be strange, but let's try making this color blue. Let's see how that, yeah, so there's lots of different things you can do with your styling. I think that's irritating, so I'm going to take that off, but you get the gist. And also I'm going to Z out my font family cursive, but I'm going to leave it Z'd out. It's going to set it back to whatever font it had before, but because I have it here, if I feel a little creative, I can change it to a different font family. Alright, there's the end of the style. Now let's talk about the script. Let's talk about the JavaScript. Everything in the style is called CSS, Cascading Style Sheet, and everything in the script tag are our JavaScript functions. So I have three functions. I have in line 30 function page scroll, in line 44 I have function stop scroll, and in line 48 I have function back to top, and then all three of those functions are inside an opening and closing script tags in the head. So let's go over function page scroll. Function page scroll has only 2 lines of code that make it work. All this green stuff is just a note to myself. In line 31 we have window.scroll by 0, 1. It gives us horizontal and vertical scroll elements. And in line 34 I have scroll delay equals set timeout. Page scroll, it's calling this function, page scroll in single quotes, comma, 50. And my notes to myself says this: page scrolls every 100 milliseconds if you set it to scroll delay equals set timeout page scroll, comma, 100. So if I set this to 50, that's basically page scroll every 50 milliseconds. Here the note says the bigger the number, the slower the scroll, and the lower the number, the faster the scroll. So 50 is a relatively fast scroll. You change that to a higher number, and it's going to slow this down considerably. Okay, so there is page scroll. Now let's look at function stop scroll. This only has one little line, and very, very simple: clear timeout, and in parentheses scroll delay. 48 function back to top, one little line, window.scroll to, and I've got 500, 0. Okay, so there's the end of the script, the end of the head. So I've went over, so far the only thing I've went over is the style to this page and some JavaScript functions. Now let's get to the body so that you can see the elements that you physically see on this page. We have an audio tag here, starting line 57 to 59, opening closing audio tag, and we gave it an ID. Audio ID equals my tune. Now I'm not using the ID for a CSS style of an audio tag because I'm not putting control or autoplay up here. I'm going to use these buttons to control it instead of seeing an audio bar like you normally see an audio player. We're using buttons instead. So the ID, my tune, down here you see where these are highlighted. When we get into the button elements, we're using that ID to make it play, to make it pause, to make it pause, and to set the current time to 0. So everywhere that you see my tune, we are using our buttons to control. And inside of the audio tags, we have the source of the noise, if you will, the chapter 13.mp3, which is nothing more than me reading all of this stuff from chapter 13 that I typed in there. All right, so it's a really long, it's like an hour-long MP3 file of me reading the chapter. Okay, so that's source src equals chapter 13.mp3. I don't have the mp3 in another folder. All of it's in the same folder that chapter 13.html is, so I didn't need to change the path. If I were to have a folder for all audio snips, if I was trying to organize all my files and I had a folder with the name of audio and I had chapter 13 or all my mp3s in that folder, then I would have to change my source path to this. But that's not the case right now, but I just wanted to remind you, if you're using folders inside of folders, you have to name the folder and put a / so that you can accurately dig out whatever it is you're linking to. Alright, so there's that. Then I've got my in line 61 div ID wrap, which we already went over when I made it have a temporary red border. It's basically wrapping all this stuff together. Then I have div ID fixed bar, which we already went over, that it's this gray fixed area with the buttons inside. Okay, so there's the opening and closing div for that. And here's the 3 buttons. If I click this button, you see the purple opening and closing. There's the next button, and there's the 3rd button. Let's go over one at a time. Maybe I should give myself a little space between the buttons. And all the buttons are inside the fixed bar div. So with the first button, we have button ID equals start. Again, I used #start for CSS to give it a green background. OnClick equals page scroll. So it's calling my page scroll, the JavaScript that was up here. It's calling this. And it's doing this. It's got 2 statements in there. OnClick equals page scroll, and OnClick equals document.getElementById, my tune that I described up here in my audio tag, .play. So when I click start, it starts to scroll my page and it plays that MP3 file. Just by doing that one click, it does 2 different things. The next button has an ID of pause, which in my style I gave it a yellow background and other things. And the onClick does 2 things as well. We are calling the stop scroll function, which is right here. It's calling this, and it's also doing document.getElementById, my tune, which again, it's that audio player, and it's using the .play method to, I'm sorry, I'm down here, the .pause method to pause the MP3. So we're stopping the scroll and we're pausing the MP3. Then lastly, we've got the button that says ID of stop, which in my style I gave it the red background and such. And this onClick event does quite a few statements. The first statement from here to this semicolon says document.getElementById, my tune. So we're talking about this again. .pause. So when we click this stop, it's pausing the MP3, just like this one did. And then the next statement is document.getElementById, again, my tune, .current time equals 0. So that's actually taking the MP3 and setting it to the 0, which is the very beginning again. And then the third statement is it's calling the stop scroll, again up here, stop scroll. And lastly, it's calling the back to top function, which is this one, which is taking whatever this scroll part is all the way to this start chapter 13 beginning. So when we click stop, it does 4 different statements. When we click the stop button, we are actually doing 4 statements. When we click the pause button, we are doing 2 statements, and when we are clicking the start button, we're doing 2 statements. Okay, now all the junk, all the notes, the whole chapter 13 that I typed is going in a text area, and I gave it the ID of info. And the text area is basically look at all this stuff that I just, oh my God, it doesn't matter what I typed. It doesn't matter if I typed symbols, syntax, just I didn't have to use any paragraph tags, any backslashes. I didn't have to escape anything. I just typed everything as the book showed. And I even have p tags and stuff in here. I just like right here, this is like everything just the way you'd code it if you were creating a page, but the output is showing in this text area without me having to do anything special to it. So that's why I like using a text area, although the tabbing is sometimes not all that nice. So sometimes viewing the text area isn't perfect, but it doesn't erase anything. It might not be that pretty, like this is not pretty at all, but it's not making anything happen. I'm still seeing function rollover var images equals document tag element by tag name img and so on and so forth. I still get the information that I need. All right, so all of this is just like I said, it's all chapter 13 in the library book, all the way down, including the space that I gave to do the exercises, all the way down to this end text area tag. And then you got end div, end body, end HTML. All right, so I basically gave you the entire top to bottom chapter 13.html. And you don't need to worry about all this junk that I'm passing by, because all this, like I said, is just the notes from chapter 13. Oh, it's actually chapter 13. It's all of chapter 13. It hasn't been minimized or shortened at all. Okay, so that's the text area. So technically between line 72, where I have the beginning of the text area, and ID equals info, ID equals info is me stylizing that text area. And right here, that's got the, I already went over all that, I don't need to do it again. But from line 72, text area, all the way to 900. All that junk inside is whatever you want it to be. You want to put a bunch of poems in there, knock yourself out. You want to put a bunch of words in there and have it set to a very large font, and then have it set to a very slow scroll so that your kindergartner or first grader can just check out some simple learning to read words. Uh, you could do whatever you want. And let's see. I don't think I need to do anything except show you the functionality. No, because I told you from top to bottom all the code. And everything in between the text area is your world. It's whatever you want in here. Recipes, notes to yourself, journal, song lyrics. You could use this for song lyrics. Make your own little karaoke thing. All of this, you can hit start and your song lyrics can slowly scroll so that you can sing away. All right. And whatever ideas that your creative mind can come up with something, some project like this. So let's get out of that and let's just show you. I hit start and it scrolls. And right now I heard the MP3 start to play in my headphones. If I hit pause, it just pauses this and it pauses the MP3 at the same time. You can't hear the MP3 being read, but trust me, it's playing in my headphones when I hit start. I'm going to hit start again, and even though you can't hear it, I'm going to hear this is going to roll again, and it's going to start wherever I left off at when I hit pause. And that instantly does. Now I'm going to hit stop. Now what stop was supposed to do, it stopped the MP3 from playing in my headphones, and it did stop this. But what I expected it to do was to go back to the top. But if I click inside here where the scroll bar would be, then it swings the scroll bar immediately to this top. But I thought that my stop would do that without me having to touch the scroll bar. So there's like a little bug in the code. It's not exactly perfect. Another thing that's not exactly perfect is if I hit start and it scrolls a little bit and I'm in a hurry and so I start manually scrolling it down faster, then I hit stop. Again, it doesn't go all the way to the top like it's supposed to, and I click here in the scroll bar and then it pulls it all the way up. So when I tested this before, I didn't have this issue. So for whatever reason I'm having it now, I'm not sure how to clear that up. But it's like as if once this scroll bar goes down so far, stop is not bringing it back up the way I thought it would. Even when I hit refresh, it's not going back up to the tip top. I have to click this and then it pulls it up. Alright, so basically I went over the whole functionality. Start scrolls and plays an MP3. Pause stops the scroll and pauses the MP3. Stop is supposed to take us up here to the very top every time, and it's supposed to take the MP3 all the way to 0, the very beginning. So when you hit start again, you're going to start the MP3 song or directions or whatever your audio is, reading a story or whatever, to the beginning. So that's a difference between the pause button and stop button. If I figure out how to perfect the stop button so that it pulls this up every time without me having to click up here where the scroll bar belongs, then I'll redo this video. But as right now, I'm just going to leave this code the way it is and play with it more later.